We are rolling. Please stand.
Cool, man. I was like standing there, like, we've all done
And let us pray. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Remember, O most gracious Virgin Mary, that never was it known that anyone who fled to thy protection, implored thy help, or sought thine intercession, was left unaided. Inspired by this confidence, I fly unto thee, O Virgin of Virgins, my Mother. To thee do I come, before thee I stand, sinful and sorrowful. O Mother of the Word incarnate, despise not my petitions, but in thy mercy hear and answer. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. If you got your notebooks, please write down the following. The worksheet is going to be due in its entirety tomorrow. For anybody who's not going to be here tomorrow, turn it in when you get back. Make sense? So these will be the notes that'll allow you to finish the second half of the worksheets. Go ahead and write these down. For those of you listening at home, hi by the way, a conic has the following parts. F1 equals 3 minus radical 41 comma 2. F2 equals 3 plus radical 41 comma 2. And B1 equals negative 2 comma 2. It said find the conic's category. That means tell me whether it's a circle, ellipse, parabola, hyperbola. And then find its equation. While you're writing that down, there are two shapes that this could not possibly be. Name one. Go.
Circle.
Cannot be a circle. Why?
Well, because it's V1.
Yeah, circles don't have vertices, and they also don't have what?
So,
What's the plural?
foci.
Foci. Yeah, circle does not have foci, and it doesn't have vertices, so it definitely can't be a circle. There's one other thing it cannot be. Go.
Oh, wait, no, a parabola.
A parabola. Why?
A parabola doesn't have two.
Right. A parabola only has one focus, not two. So we have it narrowed down either to ellipse or hyperbola. And right now we don't know which, but it's got to be one of the two. Does that make sense so far? How would we start a problem like this? Like, it says find the conic's category and then find its equation. This is not much to go on. What could you do with that information? What else?
Say graph.
I think that's an excellent idea. Now, in case you're wondering, how in the world do I graph 3 plus radical 41? I sympathize. Radical 41 is approximately, actually let's do this in our head. That's got to be a number between what and what? Let me know. Go.
6 and 7.
How do you know it's between 6 and 7?
The square. 6 squared is 36 and 7 squared is 49.
Yeah. Radical 36 is 6 and radical 49 is 7, and this is in between. Is it closer to one of the two, or pretty close to the middle, or what? Yeah, what do you think?
Close to the middle.
It's pretty close to the middle. So you can kind of approximate 6.5. It's a little less than that, I think it's 6.4 something. But that's a reasonable guess. So when you're sketching a graph, treat this as more or less 6.5, plus or minus. So 3, by the way, can anybody be really sneaky and find one more piece? The two foci, by the way, if there are two foci, it's either an ellipse or a hyperbola. And the two foci are on either side of what? Okay. Like, where do you move them from? In a parabola, you move it from vertex. How about from an ellipse or a hyperbola? The center. Can anybody put on their detective cap and tell me where the center might be? Go. Exactly. The center has to be through. Where? How do you get that? Where do you get 3, 2 from?
Focus is like focal move is radical 41.
That's another excellent thing. The focal move is radical 41. It moved to the left and to the right a certain amount of icky spaces, which, by the way, gave you the focal move. And the center, there's one other way to do the center. Where is the center compared to the two foci, Sam? If I just give random focus here, where would you look for the center?
In between.
Right, exactly in between. That means you find the midpoint between the 2 points. Oh, geometry remembering people. How do you find a midpoint? Let's see if you remember. There was actually a burst of this in it was the first semester, chapter 3, something like this. Pretend you have 2,5 and 8,9. Can somebody find the midpoint? If so, how? Ooh, that actually worked. How do you find a midpoint? Josh?
Maybe we have to, you know,
Yeah, what is that? Taking the
average.
average. Like, how do you do it? Because I need 2 different numbers. Like, how do I get the first number?
We just add 8 and 2.
Yeah, add the first 2 numbers. Average the x's, and then average the y's. Which in this case would be like 16 over 2, comma, 14 over 2, which would be 8, comma 7. That was just a random point. But you can do the exact same thing here. What's halfway between 3 plus radical 41 and 3 minus radical 41? Add them up and divide by 2. Sam, take this one. What would you get if you added these 2 x's together? It's easier than you think. What's that?
Right.
It looks horrible. And foiling this would be a pain in the neck. Adding these, just these 2 numbers, is actually quite easy, if you notice a trick. Add these, add these.
Oh, it would just be 6.
6. How do you get that so fast?
Oh, you add the 3's and then radical 41, negative radical 41.
These cancel each other, correct. And now divide by 2.
3.
3. The first number is 3. What's halfway between 2 and 2? Don't work too hard. Boys? 2. Yeah, very good. You know, it's 2 plus 2 is 4, divided by 2 is 2. Finding halfway between these is 3. Finding halfway between these is 2. That's the center. Average the 2 foci, and you'll get the center. That also works with vertices too. If you have a major vertex, average them, and you have the center. Minor vertices too. Now, don't take one major and one minor, you're gonna be in the middle of nowhere. But does that kind of make sense? We got a lot just in like 10 seconds of looking at this thing. So we have the center of 3, 2. I'm gonna grab that right away. And it's 3 plus radical 41 and 3 minus radical 41, which is roughly 6.5. I'm gonna label this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and a little bit. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and a little bit. Put a little X here and an X here. This is going to be focus 1, focus 2. Now, vertex, negative 2, 2. That's vertex 1. This is the center. Sorry. Can anybody tell me anything else whatsoever about this? Can you find any other points, or can you tell me anything interesting about it? Yeah, what do you think?
You can find the second vertices.
Mm-hmm. Where's the second vertex? But this is 1.
It's not supposed to be at -2.
Did I? Ah! Yes. My bad. Sorry. So here's 3 and here's -2. So wait, where's the other one?
5 spaces to the right.
Yeah, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Does everybody see why? Because they're evenly spaced from the center, just like the foci are. V1 and V2, by the way, pretend this is an ellipse. Just pretend. Those are the 2 what vertices? Go.
Major.
Major. Pretend it's a hyperbola. What are these? How many vertices does a hyperbola have? Say again?
Or two.
2, correct. These would be the only 2 it has. Given yesterday and the day before, can anybody tell, there's a hint there. Where, what shape is this? Is it an ellipse or is it a hyperbola? And then tell me why. Go.
Isn't it an ellipse? Because if it was in a hyperbola, the foci would be counted from the vertices.
Well, actually the focus never counts from the vertices,
No.
except for the parabola. It will. Yeah, what do you think?
It can't be ellipse because the foci have to be inside.
Remember, the foci are centers of gravity. You have to start graphing from the vertices. Is this going to be graphing outward or inward? Go. Outward. Because this is like a center of gravity. It's going to drag it this way and drag it this way. So it's dragging it outward. We have just discovered this thing is a hyperbola. We just discovered several other things about it too. What letter has to be the leader of this thing? Good. X. Why do you say that?
It's going, it's horizontal, so it has to be,
Yeah, first of all, it's a hyperbola because the foci are outside the vertices. It drags the graph outward, outside the vertices. And if you notice, they dragged them out left and right. So X is the leader because the foci moved horizontally. If this had been a Y equals the leader, it would have opened up and down, and the foci would have moved up and down. So we just learned a lot. Can somebody tell me the formula, just the general formula, no numbers, almost no numbers, of an X liter hyperbola? What would it look like? Go, Nick.
X minus h
Good.
squared
Yep.
all over the horizontal radius squared.
Good. And then what has to be here?
Minus
Minus, good.
y minus k
Uh-huh.
whole squared over the vertical radius and then equal to 1.
Correct. I know it has to look like this. We discovered a lot in a very short period of time. Let me quick summarize. All they gave us was the 2 foci, were the 2 foci, and 1 vertex. The fact that they numbered a vertex was suspicious. If it were a parabola, they would have just said vertex, period. And there would have been only 1 focus. So we said, okay, it was either an ellipse or a hyperbola, because a circle doesn't have foci at all. Sketch it, put it on a graph, even if you have to do it roughly. It doesn't have to be perfect. They're not even asking you to graph on this thing. They're not looking for an accurate graph. We just sketched it so that we could find out which was where. Halfway between the foci is our center. That told us a lot. First, it gave us the center. 2, it told us which way the vertices were opening. So if it was an ellipse, this would have been the major vertex, so it would have been fairly short. But the fact that the foci were outside has to be a hyperbola. There's something else. They're actually, we learned the focal move is radical 41. There's another measurement you can find now. Does anybody see it? Oh, detectives. Yeah,
And the horizontal radius,
we found the horizontal radius. How do you figure?
it's 5.
It's 5. The horizontal radius has to be 5. What's the vertical radius? Beats the heck out of me. I have no clue. There's no dots up here. So the horizontal radius is 5, that's interesting. And the focal move is radical 41. Interesting. Do we have the center on this thing? Sam.
3 comma 2.
3, 2. Look at the formula. Fill in something for me.
H is 3 and K is 2.
Yep. X minus 3 squared over, leave the blank, minus y minus 2 squared over, leave that blank, equals 1. We're half done. If I can find the vertical radius and the horizontal radius, we're done. Do we have any? Make what? We have the horizontal radius, which is what again? 5. Put that here and square it. So what would that be? 25. We're 3/4 of the way done. Yeah. India?
To find the vertical radius, would you do like,
This is a challenge. Like, I don't even see a vertex there. Yeah.
well, since the formula was C equals radical A squared plus B squared, could you do
That is clever. C equals radical what for a hyperbola?
A squared plus B squared?
A squared plus B squared. Make sure it's plus. Whenever the formula is minus, the focal move is plus, and vice versa. Do we have any of those? Do we have C? Do we have A? Do we have B? Megan. We have C. It's what? Yeah, it's radical 41 is equal to radical A squared plus B squared. Okay, math detectives. What do A and B stand for in a hyperbola? In an ellipse, there are major and minor radius. Place it.
On the leading radius.
The leader radius and the,
Radius.
yeah, and the follower radius. A equals the leader, and B is the follower. Well, all I have is the horizontal. How am I supposed to know which one that is? Go.
Doesn't it not matter?
Actually, it does. Well, I suppose in this case it might not. You're talking about, since it's plus, who cares which one is which? Okay, yeah, that's sneaky. But I want to find out what it is anyway, because eventually we might have to need it. Actually, in this case, I think it would matter, because we have to put, it wouldn't. All right, fine. Yeah, question, yeah, or answer.
I was gonna say, we know that X is the leader, so it has to be 5.
X is the leader, which means that the horizontal radius is the leader, which means that the horizontal radius is A. Ta-da! So we now have 5 squared plus B squared. I have no clue what B is. Can you find it? Oh, many people. Marion. Yeah, that's lucky. By the way, go. Okay, sorry. Next item.
4.
How do you get it?
Well, 5 squared is 25, and you have to have that equal.
I mean, how do you solve this? I'll do it down here. But radical 41 equals radical, what's 5 squared? 25 plus B squared. Tell me how to solve.
Well,
I mean, yes, you did it in your head. Congratulations. But use the algebra. How do you get B by itself? What do you get rid of first?
well, the square
The square root. How do you get rid of the square root?
square
Square it, as long as you do it to
both sides.
correct. The square and the square root cancel. And what is this going to give you? Let's take over.
It'd be 41.
41 equals what?
25 plus 3 squared.
Mary, finish it off for me.
And subtract 25 from 41.
Good. What do you get? 16. H equals B squared. So what's B? 4 or -4. One of those makes no sense in our picture. What does B represent picture-wise? What did we just find? What was all this trying to find? The vertical radius. What's wrong with one of these? Yeah. Yeah, a radius can't be negative. So you just found V is equal to 4, which is the vertical radius. What goes here? Make what? 16. And you are done. Does that make sense? It's a detective work from beginning to end. If you're into this sort of stuff, it's actually quite amusing. If you're not, it might be a little bit of purgatory, but you can get some souls out of purgatory, which is good. Good. Yeah, very good. Questions on this? So you can do this sort of detective work on any shape. Hyperbolas, ellipses, parabolas, circles. Circles are super duper easy, for one thing. If they say the center is blah, 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 and the radius is blah, well, you're done. Take out your worksheet, please, 6C-3. Look at the back page. Now, they actually gave it away on number 5. The vertices, and they actually give you both foci, which is, I think it's kind of lame. You should be able to find the center from that data pretty easily. You should also be able to find the focal move without too much difficulty. And sketching that, you should be able to find out what sort of shape it is, even though they completely spoiled it in the instructions. Yes, it's a hyperbola. I wanted you to find out on your own, but whatever. I do want to give you just a tiny hint on number 7, and then I'm going to give you the rest of the outer work. Let me try. Okay. Is everybody okay with this so far? Anybody need this? Okay. I'm going to give you one more problem. Because if they give you like problem number 7, if they give you this big mess, in circles we did what's called double complete the square. For ellipses we did double complete the square. And for this one we're going to do double complete the square. But with one catch. Write the following down if you would. I gotta do this in my head because this thing didn't do a very good job, but that's my life anyway. Wow. And oh, I see. Got it. 4x squared. Let's see. Minus 24x. Oh, flipping numbers, hang on. Oh, I hate it when they do that, darn it. Sorry, I gotta change the numbers. Hang on a second. Yes, got it. No, I don't get it, hang on. I wanna make sure this doesn't give you some icky decimals. Okay. 16x squared minus 96x minus let me double check. You'll thank me for this in a minute. Otherwise, you're going to have insane answers. Okay. 25y squared. Plus 100y. Minus 356 equals 0. What I want you to do, graph an line. Now, go ahead and write that down first of all. Can anybody tell me what shape this is? And explain why? Yeah,
Circle, or an ellipse.
maybe.
Or
What's your reasoning?
because both the variables are squared.
That's correct. Both variables are squared, so it cannot be a what?
Can't be a parabola.
Cannot be a parabola. So there are 3 other choices. Ellipse, circle, or hyperbola. How do you tell? Is it a circle? There's something that gives it away. Is this thing a circle? Yeah. What's that? Why not?
It's the variable square.
The variables are squared, although in a circle they are. Like x squared plus y squared equals 4 is a circle. But there's something else. You're right, it is not a circle. Something's preventing it, yes.
Isn't the variables, or like the coefficients aren't, something about coefficients being.
Like, let me give you a quick example. 16x squared plus 16y squared equals 64. Anybody know what shape that is? Yeah, that's a circle. Prove it. Yeah.
Is it because the coefficients are the same?
Yes. Coefficients are the same. If both variables are squared and the coefficients are the same, it's a circle. Let me prove it to you. Divide everything by 16 on both sides. X squared plus y squared equals 4. That's a circle at the center of 0, 0, radius of 2. This thing is not a circle. It was looking close, but the numbers in front are not the same. So that leaves either an ellipse or hyperbola. Any bets? Go.
Hyperbola.
Hyperbola, why do you say that?
Because the leading coefficients are, one is negative, one is positive.
One is negative, one's positive. In other words, this is going to be a subtraction problem. Whenever you have something squared minus something squared, this is basically x squared blah 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 minus y squared blah blah blah. I've just given you, well, you just discovered, a test for hyperbola. You can see it from a mile away. If the squared terms have one positive, one negative, hyperbola. Guaranteed. Hyperbola, as far as we know. So, this thing is a hyperbola. Because of both terms are squared and the coefficients have opposite signs. Here's my question for you. Who's the leader? X or Y? Raise your hand if you think you want to take a stab. It's very hard to tell. Look at the formula for hyperbola and it might help. One of the squared terms has to be positive. One of the squared terms has to be negative. And the position makes a big difference. Go, Joe.
Maybe X.
X is the leader. Why do you say that?
Because there's the minus sign in between both of them, which would make the y negative.
Yeah. If the Y is the leader, Y would be positive. If the X is the leader, X would be positive, or X squared. This is a metaphor that I stole from my high school math teacher as well. A leader does not have to be the biggest radius. It just has to be the leader. However, in order to be a leader for a hyperbola, you have to be positive. That's a good life lesson, by the way. If you're going to be a leader, be positive. I tried. But if it's going to be something minus something, the first thing has to be positive. Otherwise, it'd be the other way around. So here's what I'd like you to do. Group the x's and group the y's. Make sure the x's come first, though. It's not an option. It's 16x squared minus 96x plus blank. This is a lot like what we did for ellipses and circles. And then for this, negative 25y squared plus 100y plus blank. And again, this is, I don't want to call it junk, but this extra stuff, the 356, add it to the other side so we can get it out of the way. Still with me? Why did we do that? First of all, so we can get in the right form, and second of all, I want to make sure the x's are in front. The leader should be in front. That's a good life lesson too. Unless you're in the army. What do we do now? What's the next step? Megan, what do we do with this thing? How do we start completing the square on this thing? Yes. The 16, is that a common factor? Does it go into 96? Okay, anybody? Go. It goes in 6 times. It does work. X squared minus 6x plus blank plus, what's the next one? Nick, take over. Do the complete the square process on this thing. Or what do you do first?
Take out the -25.
Mm-hmm. Anytime the first term is negative, take out a negative. Plus negative 25, what's left behind?
Y squared minus 4.
Yes, minus 4y. You could, normally you'd put minus blank, it doesn't really matter because it's dead, but it's square the last, so keep it positive. Equals 356 so far. Everybody right so far? Look what I'm about to do, this is key. Do you see this? Add a negative, what's that the same as? Subtracting. I almost never do this. I am a big fan of addition. I hate subtraction. This is one time we have to. I'm going to change this to 16 parentheses x squared minus 6x plus blank minus 25 parentheses y squared minus 4y plus blank equals 356. I didn't do a heck of a lot, but it's critical. A hyperbola has to have a subtraction sign between the two clumps. Now what? Let me see, Becca, take over. How do you complete the square on this thing? We got the 16 out of the way.
Alternate x plus, or,
Yes. So blah, 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 and then
square.
square. So we're going to compress it into a binomial squared. What binomial squared did it come from?
X minus 3.
Good, x minus 3. What should this last number have been?
9.
9. Everybody look up here. See where this new 9 came from? That's extra weight we didn't have before. Add it over here. Correct or incorrect? Nick?
Has to be multiplied by 16.
Yeah, it's 16 times bigger than we thought it was. Anybody happen to know 16 times 9? Yeah. 144. Very good. Leave that for a time being. Plus, Mary, take over. Try this one. Minus what?
Could be just still -25,
Uh-huh.
and y minus 2.
Y minus 2, correct, squared. What should have been here?
Plus 4.
Plus 4. Should I do this?
No, because I have to multiply times 25.
Actually by
Negative.
negative 25. Good. What does that make?
Negative 100.
Negative 100. Correct. Still with me? Can somebody condense this stuff up, add them up? 356 plus 144 minus 100. You can basically do 356 plus 44. What is it? Let me know. It's actually a very nice number. Go. It's 400. Nice. This is looking better and better, in one sense. You don't have to fall in love with it, you just have to admit that's not quite as horrendous. One more step should get this in the correct form. Right click. There's one hint. The answer should be what? 1. How do you get it down to 1? Bingo, as long as you do it too. Yep. Divide everything by 400. Does 16 go into 400? Oh, math people? How many times? Let me know. Go. 25. This will reduce to blah over 25. I now have x minus 3 parentheses squared over 25 minus, Blaze, take this one. Does 25 go into 400?
Yes.
How many times? Anyone know?
It is,
16, very good. You notice these kind of swapped? It doesn't always work, but it's a nice one. And you equal to what, anyway? 1. You have just gotten it in proper form. Now, there's good news and bad news. The good news is that was kind of the sort of the hard part. Getting it in the right form. The bad news is now you have to graph and analyze it.
No.
Now you get to start the problem. Yeah. Isn't that awful? That's a bad way of putting it. You've already started the problem and you've actually already done all the really hard grunt work. Let's do it. Now, it shouldn't be as stressful. Josh, take over. Give me some pieces of this thing.
You can do the center.
Center of what?
There's a hyperbola.
Yep.
3, 2.
3 comma 2. Same as if it were an ellipse or a circle. What's the, Nate, what's the horizontal radius?
Horizontal radius would be 5.
5. It's radical 25, which is 5. Give me the vertical radius while I got it.
4.
Yeah, it's radical 16, which is 4. Which one is A? Sam.
Horizontal radius,
Why?
because X is the leader.
Yeah, it's not because it's the biggest. I'll have to get one where it isn't the biggest. But it's the leader. And so B has to be what?
4.
4. So that's the follower. Refresh my memory before I move on to the next person. What is the formula for the focal move of a hyperbola?
Radical A squared plus B squared.
A squared plus B squared. Austin, take over. What's the focal move of this, particular thing?
So that's gonna be 20, radical 25 plus 16. So we have radical 41.
Radical 41? Excellent. You've got radical 41 as your focal move. Can anybody tell me the leader, first of all, please? It's sort of up there already. Is it the horizontal or the vertical?
Of the horizontal.
The horizontal. And mainly it's because the X is first. So let's start graphing this thing. We've got 3 comma 2. I'm wondering if anybody sees it. Did anybody see it yet? It's the exact same graph as we just did. This was the expanded version of the graph we just did. So, and if you notice, this formula should match what we just did in our previous problem. So I will spare you the rest of the analysis because we already have it, but I do want to graph it. We did not graph it last time. 3 comma 2. Direct me. No. How do you graph this thing? Where do you start?
Draw the box.
Yeah, box. How?
So
Where do we go?
the horizontal radius, that first, so go over 5, hold left hand.
Okay. Got it. So we've got a dot here, okay,
And then up and down from the center up 4 times 4.
okay. And then 4. Okay, and then guide box. What's the purpose of the guide box?
For the asymptotes to go through the corner.
Right, corner to corner and through the center. Make sure they're nice and long. And corner to corner through the center. How do you actually do the drawing of this thing, Becca? Is it opening left, right, or up, down? Left, right. How do you know that? X is the leader. So, do you start from the left and right points or the top and bottom points? Left and right. Tell me how to do it. Right. Chase the asymptotes and get closer and closer without actually touching, which I was kind of close. You've just graphed your hyperbola. And the rest of it would be an analysis, which we already had from the previous problem. And you're done. If you can do that, you have just taken a hyperbola, torn it apart, rebuilt it forward and backward. If you followed every step of all of that, you have just mastered vertical and horizontal hyperbolas. Congratulations. With one exception that I'm going to give you when we get back from break. Questions? All right. Last 10 minutes, 12 minutes is yours. Go ahead and pound away at these. I assume 1, 2, 3, and 4 are not too horrible, I hope. And then 5, 6, and 7, feel free to do what we did with this for number 7. And then 5 and 6, do your detective work. 5 and 6, all you have to do is get the formula. You don't have to analyze it, and you don't have to graph it necessarily. You can graph it partially to get your stuff. And that's it. So call me if we get stuck. Otherwise, good luck. And for those of you watching at home, God bless your health or your journeys or whatever on earth you're doing, your relatives, your great Aunt Helga. See you later. Bye.